But let's start with the good news. Israel has shown that the viral load from COVID was reduced fourfold on average for people who had already gotten the vaccination. So, big question was this, the big question. If you get the vaccination, are you still a carrier of the virus? And the answer is yes, but not so much. So it matters how much. And the good news is that the vaccination does exactly what you would think it would do. It greatly reduces the amount of virus in the person, and therefore presumably would greatly reduce the amount of viral infections. So not only will the vaccinations reduce the number of deaths and hospitalizations, but it will also decrease the amount of spread. Apparently a lot. We don't know the exact number, but if it's a fourfold decrease in virus, that's probably a lot. Probably a lot. Here's the other good news. There was a randomized controlled study. That's the good kind, the kind that you should pay attention to. Now, if there's only one of them, you still would like to see some confirmation from at least one other study. But having even one peer-reviewed randomized controlled study is better than none. Better than none. And one of the things that they found is that this drug called budesonide looks like it can reduce the risk of hospitalization by 90% if you get it early. Did you just hear that? There's a common, already available drug. How available is it? I have some right here. Now, this is a prescription and I use it for a different purpose. What I use it for is I had sinus surgery last summer. And to keep my sinuses open, it's a kind of a corticosteroid thing, I think. And it just keeps polyps from forming in my sinus. So I use a different form of it. I don't use the inhalant. I use a liquid form that I put in a neti pot, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, this is a common drug that asthmatics use. I don't use it for that. I have asthma coincidentally. But if this is true, and it is a randomized controlled trial, right? And randomized controlled trials are pretty good. And even if it were not randomized and controlled, if you get something like a 90% difference, I mean, you don't even need many controls to know you got something if you've got a 90% difference. If you had a 20% difference, then I'd be worrying about the quality of the study and all the details. But a 90% difference? A 90% difference in a randomized controlled trial? I don't know how that could be wrong. I mean, anything's possible, right? But it's hard to imagine that could be wrong. So, here's the good news for the country. The good news is we may have a widely available drug that takes 90% of the risk away from people who have early symptoms, which in conjunction with the vaccinations, this is the best place we've ever been. This is the best place we've ever been. Somebody's saying that budesonide is sold under the brand name Pulmicort. That sounds right. I think that's right. So here's the bad news. I already take some just prescription meds, like one for acid reflux, etc. And some of my meds were very restricted for the past year or so because the pandemic made it hard to get meds. Now, I don't know where this is manufactured. The company is Cipla. Let's see if it tells me somewhere where it's manufactured. Oh, fuck. I did not see this coming. You ready for this? This drug, budesonide, now this is the suspension type, so I assume that they also make the inhalant, but at least they have access to the drug. A company called Cipla, C-I-P-L-A. And if it's true that this can reduce, the risk of hospitalizations by 90%, this is manufactured for Cipla. Wait. Manufactured by Cipla. So it's an American company, but it's manufactured in India. Manufactured in India. But an American company. So can an American company control how much we get from India? I would imagine India is going to clamp down on their control now. So what we don't know is where the raw materials come from. Maybe that's a problem. The precursors would be a problem. The chemicals that go into making this chemical, they might come from China. So we'll see. But at least it's a friendly nation, India. So that's better than China. All right. I mean, this is the best day. It is the best day for the pandemic. It's the best day. This is the day that it looks like a human ingenuity just built the nuclear bomb. It's like World War II, and the Manhattan Project just came in. So the vaccinations were kind of the Manhattan Project, but they needed this other thing. What you really needed was something that would also treat the people who got it, not just the vaccination. And we might have it. We might have it. Now, the bad news is if this drug is unavailable to me, I won't be able to breathe for the next year. So the quality of my life may have just decreased substantially, but the quality of the country will be substantially improved, and I'm willing to take that trade-off. I hope you would be too. I hope it doesn't kill me. All right. Biden has a plan, apparently, to open only half of the schools in the country and only 1 day a week by the end of April. Does that sound good enough to you? All right, I keep seeing in the comments people saying hydroxychloroquine, hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine did not have a randomized control trial. All right? If hydroxychloroquine had a randomized control trial, then we'd be talking about that. But we'll see. If you're critical of the budesonide story, that it might turn out not to be true, you could be right. It could turn out to not be true. But I'm going to go with optimism for today. So Biden's plan is to open half of the schools by April, 1 day a week, which is not nearly enough. Doesn't really even address, I would say it doesn't address any of the problem, does it? Do you think your kids are suddenly going to get healthy and smarter because school is open 1 day a week? Not really. Somebody says Cipla is in fact an Indian company. Well, I'm going to read you might be right, because the packaging is cleverly ambiguous. Here's what it says. Manufactured for, Cipla USA. So it's manufactured for Cipla USA. Does that mean it's a U.S. company? Somebody's saying here's an Indian company. Could an Indian company just make the name of their company Cipla USA? And I think they could, right? There's nothing that would stop them from doing that. So somebody says it is a U.S. subsidiary, manufactured for an American subsidiary. Well, so it's something like that. We'll figure it out by the end of today. So I'm wondering if Biden's plan, being very short of what the public wants, I mean, not even close to what the public wants, I wonder if it's because of a lack of PPE and protective stuff. Is it a lack of funding? Is that what the problem is? Because if so, then I think you could put some of that back on the Trump administration, couldn't you? Because it's not today that they find themselves unprepared. They've probably been unprepared for months. So if the reason that Biden can't open things is because the schools are not funded well enough to have the preparations, that's a Trump administration issue, because they should have been ready by now, and if they didn't give funding, you got to blame the boss. So Biden and Trump, I think, have to take some equal measure of this being a complete failure. And I would say that the school reopening issue is a complete failure of government. It's a complete failure of government because it's the teachers' unions, as you know, who are keeping schools closed, doing a good job maybe for their members. I can see why a union would want to act that way. But the country is just getting strangled. If you have not observed yet a child breaking down because of the current lack of social structure, where do you see it in person? Where do you see what it's doing to kids? It's really messing with people. I would say that this week, I like to consider myself mentally strong. And even if I'm not, I like to have that as my view of myself, because I think it maybe helps make me mentally stronger. If you believe you're mentally strong, I think it helps be mentally stronger. But I gotta say, this pandemic's starting to get to me. I've had good days and bad days, but I gotta say, if the pandemic's getting to me, it's really messing with people who are not as, I guess I'm complimenting myself here. I feel like I am mentally strong. And if it's getting to me, I can only imagine what it's doing to people who are in a worse situation. I mean, yeah. Tell me in the comments. Show me in the comments where you're at. And let's say mental health-wise. Where are you at mental health-wise? Show me in the comments. I'm seeing lots of comments asking me to talk about ivermectin. Ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, it's the same story. There are reports that it's good, but we don't have the randomized controlled trials to know. So I would not be betting anything on ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine at this point. If either of them were the big deal that we hoped they were, we would know it by now. And we don't. Oh, look at that. I'm looking at your comments, and I'm actually impressed at how many of you are doing well, but not all of you. Somebody's a 6 out of 10. Somebody says they're broken. Somebody says about to break. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. We'll get through this. So if you're close to breaking, hold on. You'll be glad you did. 7 out of 10, fine. Worse I've been so far. Sorry about that. If I wasn't crazy, I'd go insane. Yeah. Imagine being poor and living in a cramped inner city housing. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I try to imagine how this is for people who are not as fortunate as I am to be able to ride this out in relative luxury compared to other people. And I almost can't imagine it. It's almost beyond my ability to imagine how bad this must be for a pretty big segment of the country. Almost can't imagine it. I mean, but we're heading in the right direction.